And welcome once again to another edition of Footnotes. We are excited to be in our studio this early morning. I'm with Brandon. Hello, Brandon.
Hello.
And today we have our Deacon of Finances, our Treasurer Extraordinaire, the man with the plan, Adam King.
Good morning.
And welcome, Adam King. We are thankful that you're here with us. And the topic that we're going to be talking about today on Footnotes is giving. Now, before you tune us out and you shut us off and you say, oh, no, I don't need that in my life today, stick around, because we want to inform you and encourage you that when you give to Broadway Baptist Church, there's multiple ways you can give. You may have asked that question before. And not only are there multiple ways that you can give, but also when you're giving, where does your money go? What is the accountability? How secure is it? All of these things you've probably asked in your mind. You've wondered, when I give to the church, is it worth it? Is it a good investment? Well, we know that we should give because the Scripture tells us to give, and we're to tithe because Scripture tells us to tithe. But yes, we want you to know where that money goes. So that's the purpose of the podcast today. We hope that you find it encouraging. So Adam, tell us a little bit about your credentials very quickly. You are a quarterback for Ole Miss in 1996. Is that
not
correct?
Not true. No.
Okay, well, scoot on up to that microphone there. But you did play football for Ole Miss.
I did, yes.
And what year were you a football player at Ole Miss?
2000 and 2001.
Oh, I thought it was when I was there.
You're a little older than I am, Mark.
I'm a little older than you. What year was your brother a football player at Ole Miss?
96 through 2000.
Now, you see, I would have been there when he was there.
That is true.
I'm sure I saw him make many, many plays, or not.
He was the punter, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sure I saw Reagan make some plays when I was there. Very interesting. I was the guy that was running around on the field in shorts that they would tackle and arrest. So,
I've seen those highlights.
You've seen those highlights.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, Adam not only has played Ole Miss football in his past, but he is an accountant. Very exciting.
Very, very exciting, yes.
Yes. When I think of exciting, I think of accountants.
A lot of people say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Adam, you are the brains behind our finances as our Deacon of Finance, and you're our treasurer. And truthfully, in all seriousness, there's a lot we couldn't do without your service. So we're so thankful for you, and we just want to publicly say that. You keep us on track. You help us out. You've got a good mind about you. So Brandon had this idea. Brandon, you go on and speak on up. I'm wearing that jacket today. Speak on up. Brandon said, hey, we should do a podcast with Adam. And kind of tell us the thoughts you had behind it.
Yeah, just, again, here, especially with the podcast, we want to intentionally kind of inform and instruct the body of Christ, like what is happening behind the scenes so that the church can take ownership of the ministry that's happening. And one of the ways in which we hope to do that, and my hope for this podcast, was through giving, and for us pastorally, giving an awareness to how every dollar that is given towards the church, the ministry of Broadway Baptist Church, is utilized by the pastoral staff, by the church as a whole, by the various branches of the church or arms of the church, like missions council and different things that must be done, like building maintenance and all those things that have to be done with a building that is as aged as ours. And so there are a lot of things that go on, and this is a way to provide that information to the membership and to instruct them.
Yeah. So when they give, we want them to know where your money's going and what it's doing. So hopefully this will be informative. Well, this is how we're going to break it down. 3 areas we're going to discuss. Number 1, giving to the general fund. What does that mean? And where does your money go when you give to the general fund? And then secondly, because we are currently in a debt reduction campaign, the debt reduction fund, when you give to that, what are you actually doing and how is that benefiting? And then thirdly, because right now, and we know that people listen to these podcasts at all different times of the year, but right now we're in the Christmas season, moving into it, and we are in the Christmas offering, and that is enabling us to do some major renovations on our property inside this year, outside last year. So when you give to the Christmas offering, what does that mean, and where does that money go, and why are we designating it to our building versus, say, to Lottie Moon or something like that? So we want to just clarify all that and help you. So let's start with the general fund. Guys, when a person tithes, generally, and they don't designate it on their envelope or on their electronic online giving, that money just naturally goes into what we call the general fund. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the general fund is what's used for really all aspects of running the church, but it goes well beyond that as well. So, first of all, you mentioned the debt. We do have a required debt payment. A portion goes to that, and that's roughly $30,000 a month that's required to go toward the debt. And that's why it's so important that we eliminate that debt. And I'm sure we'll talk more about that here in a minute. It also covers paying you guys. I think it's important that you guys are here, so we want to make sure you guys are compensated for that.
We appreciate that, especially Brandon.
That's right, especially Brandon.
He likes to eat.
Yeah, but then, like I said, Brandon mentioned building maintenance, building insurance, some very necessary things that, may not sound that fun, but they're incredibly necessary to run a church the size of ours. But it does go well beyond that. As also, roughly 10% of our annual budget goes toward missions. We support specific missionaries. We support the Southern Baptist Convention, and we support some other local and county mission boards as well. So we do about $150,000 a year of that general fund goes toward missions. And so it also supports outreach events like Fall Fest and the various worship ministry events that we've done in the past, like The Word and bringing in the band this Christmas. And so really supports all aspects of the church.
Keeps everything going.
And
you
going.
Don't think about it, but everything from cleanliness in the nursery that's important to a mother, to security check-in that's important to a father, from the lights being on and the air running, which is important to everybody in the summer. That's what the general fund goes to. So it's a wide berth of items. Now, there's always people, I've always encountered these people, all of my ministry, who want to scoff at churches budgeting and talking about money because Jesus had a knapsack and was barefoot and had his hobo band, and they traveled the country and never needed any money. But I'm not sure that's accurate biblically. That caricature that I've heard, from these dissenters all of my life, who say, "Why can't the church just do what Jesus did?" Well, first of all, you take Israel. As a nation theocratically run by God, they were wealthy. I mean, they took off with Egypt's goods to begin with. Remember, they plundered the Egyptians. And then they took all that they plundered and they made the tabernacle and then eventually the temple. And you go to Solomon's era, David's era, you have a very wealthy nation that is being a testimony, a witness. It's powerful. They had armies. Now, this is under a direct theocracy of God. Well, we know that the New Testament is not that way directly, but you go to the New Testament and money is discussed very often with the church. Tithing is discussed. The needs of the poor are discussed. The giving to the work of the ministry is discussed. And Jesus himself, paid the tax. He caused it to come out of a fish mouth, but he paid the tax. And
we should look into that.
We should look into that. And, his method, too, of economy was he could take fish and loaves and multiply them. Now, we can't do that. So without that miracle, it does take money, and it always has, biblically speaking, practically speaking, to do ministry. That's just life. Would we say, is this too much to say? It takes money to do about everything.
That's a fact.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to eat, you got to work, right? And that involves economy to some degree.
Yeah.
Whatever system you're under, it involves some kind of economy. So the church has to be a part of that. That's life. That's just the way it is. Now, you give to your church. What do you guys think about tithing? I know this isn't a podcast about tithing, but what do you think about tithing?
Well, personally, my wife and I consider it a privilege to give back each month. And I think when we talked about, and it's obviously going to slip my mind, but the summer managing God's money, or managing
with
money
Crown
God's way,
Financial
Crown
Ministries.
Financial, whoever the CEO of that was, his name slips my mind, but he would talk about how God has given us all these things, and everything in essence in this earth, in this life, belongs to him anyway. He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, right? He owns everything. He owns the earth and all of its fullness. And so really we are just stewards of what God has given to us. And so naturally it should be that we give back a portion, just a simple portion of what he has so richly blessed us with. So that's how we see the tithe. Every month when we receive income, because right now we don't grow grain and all these things that we could give first fruits from. We don't do that. We don't have a wheat farm in our backyard or anything like that. But we do receive income, and out of that income we take a portion of that, and biblically we see the 10th number there. But that's really the minimum, right? But we take that portion and we give it back to the Lord. And for us, that's giving to the local church, because we see that modeled in Scripture, like in Paul when he would say to give towards this or that cause within the local church there in different areas, like to the church at Macedonia when he mentioned them specifically giving the gift and for the work of the ministry. And so I think of that, and that's what we do.
And money is simply those goods that you mentioned. You said we don't have grain, but in essence, money, and Adam, you're smarter at this than I am. I've only read a college textbook once, but on economics. But money is just a note.
Yeah.
If you have wheat and I have tomatoes, and that's our only means of exchange, then I've got to want wheat and you've got to want tomatoes at the time of year that they grow.
Yeah.
But the beauty of money is, if I don't want your wheat and I want wood, but other people want your wheat, money is a way of exchange that is better than barter. So it's the wheat, it's the tomatoes,
Sure.
it's the field, it's whatever you've got. It's just a note that says, when I'm ready to do what I need to do, this note will ensure, this tender will ensure that I can do it, and that we have a medium of exchange. So Adam, people give to the general fund. How well would you say Broadway as a whole gives? Now, let me preface that. You said, Brandon, that you and your wife give. My family gives. It's a requirement under the leadership here that if you're on our staff or you're a deacon, you need to be giving.
Right.
If we're going to ask our people to do something, then we've got to do it ourselves.
Sure.
It's got to be, representative of us. So, we're tithing. We're not asking you to do anything we wouldn't do. But Adam, when you look at what's happening in the general fund, would you say things are good at Broadway? Are they bad? What's our state of the church?
Yeah, so I'd say even historically, well, I guess first let me say, these guys, nobody actually sees individuals giving. We have Patricia Peak in the church office. She's the only person who actually knows who's giving on an individual level. But we do see, we'd say giving units or family giving, and then obviously the end result numbers as well. So, throughout time, I think it's very evident that the members of Broadway have been generous givers. And, I think the numbers themselves here lately, as our membership has grown, our giving has grown. So I think that's showing that the new members coming in are biblical givers. And I think that tells an incredible story. And, one of the things I've been encouraged about here lately is, as more and more people have gone toward the online giving or the recurring giving, you're seeing much more stable patterns in giving week over week. Just 2 or 3 years ago, let's say it was Thanksgiving Sunday and not many people were traveling and you had low attendance. Well, you immediately saw that in giving. We don't see that as much now. You still see it a little bit, but not as much. So overall, I'd say the people of Broadway have been biblical givers, which is incredibly encouraging. And you asked kind of how things are. And we put this in the bulletin, roughly once a month. But I'd say right now we're right on track with where we expected to be. But coming up on the Christmas season, it's incredibly important that we continue that way, because the way our budget or the way our forecast works is we use a 3-year rolling average to come up with an expectation of what giving's going to be. And November and December are always the highest giving months. So, I'm sure you guys thought about this when planning the timing of this podcast, but, it is incredibly important that giving continue into this Christmas season because, we're on a June to May fiscal year. And so realistically, coming out of the Christmas season, we're able to see where we are financially for the full year. And, if the Christmas giving season doesn't come in where we expect it to, there are some levers we would have to pull from an expense standpoint to make sure that we're in good financial shape by the end of the fiscal year.
Yeah, so there's encouragement that you see in the giving.
Absolutely. And
when they give, they're giving to all these different departments of the church. There's accountability too. So let's just say this. The pastors don't really look at who's giving what. Why would we not do that? We could do that. Why would we not do that?
Yeah, I think it's important that there be some separation between the pastors and the people giving. Like, I don't want you looking at an individual and be like, I'm not going to help you because you don't give. You should be, their giving should be between them and God, and then you should be their pastor.
So there is that accountability, and we do try to have that separation, but we also look at the numbers. So we're given reports, and we see, like you said, as a whole, is the church giving? Mm-hmm. Are people being faithful? So we can shepherd that way. Brandon, when you hear that, there's accountability. Let's also say, Adam, not only do we have a finance department that handles it, it's audited, right? So I get these sheets. Well, it's a nonprofit, so I know you're going to say but I get something from, what is that company in Hernando where I have to sign off every year? And you don't have to name the company, but it's something they do, okay?
We have an outside party do what's called a compilation and some agreed upon procedures. And what that means is they go to like the bank statements, look at the deposits, and make sure that the deposits on the bank statement match the actual giving statements that go out to the members.
So there's no embezzlement or anything like that.
Right. That helps ensure there's no embezzlement and make sure that the giving statement that the members receive is accurate and complete. Make sure all your giving shows up on there. So there's
outside accountability. There's a finance department. There's counters that come in on Monday.
Right.
They're volunteers. They count the money and then they go and deposit it. And so there's security there. But you also have a finance council that's members. Most of them have experience in the finance world. I'm thinking of people who do accounting for companies. I'm thinking of people who were bankers. And they oversee the budget process, and they make sure that nothing crazy is budgeted. So, when Brandon wants to budget a theme park, they say,
I think that would be you.
I put that under your budget, though.
Yeah.
Okay. And Timothy wants a Pac-Man machine. I mean, we have to say, that doesn't look right. But we do have a lot of accountability. And so we want people to know when you give, there's all these different sources that are holding this system accountable. So if you're a stakeholder, so to speak, and you're giving and you're a member, you want that security. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you want to say anything about that.
Yeah, so maybe first talk briefly about the budgeting process and then how it's monitored from there. But the budgeting process really does start with the pastors and staff. They go through really their vision for the church for the next year. And like you said earlier, everything costs money. So you have to figure out how much those things are going to cost and come up with your budget categories. That's reviewed and challenged by the finance council. There's usually some back and forth asking questions. Sometimes adjustments are made. That's then presented to the deacons who, again, make challenges to certain things. Sometimes it's, hey, are you sure this is enough? But sometimes it goes the other way too. And then ultimately that's presented to the membership in the summer to approve the budget for the next year. Once you have an approved budget, again, the pastors and staff are each responsible for certain line items within that budget. And on a very regular basis, Brandon, as part of his administrative roles, tracking, looking at those expenses, making sure things are in line. But then on a monthly basis, the Finance Council reviews the financials, make sure we understand how every dollar was spent. We're looking at, anything that jumped up, make sure we understand, what was the driver of this expense. And, we're challenging things all on the way, really on a monthly basis from that standpoint.
So lots of planning, lots of organization, lots of accountability. So when you give, you can know, look, I'm giving securely. It's not being wasted. Everything's budgeted. We start the budgeting process as pastors really about January, and we finish it up about March for the next year, the next fiscal year. We put on paper what we estimate. Okay, I've got a conference. I've got, this material that I need to buy. I've got this. We put that all out on paper. You guys look at it. And one thing, Adam, you've been so good to say, the Finance Council is not here to tell you what to do in ministry. You're just simply there to say if we can do it or not, right? So if we come to you and say, we've got this great idea. We're going to have a theme park at the back of our property, and we need $2 million budgeted this year. You guys are not trying to say, no, you can't do that. You're just saying, look, fiscally, we don't think that's possible. So can you come up with something else, some other way to do this, that, or the other?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say in general, our mindset is how do we get to yes? And that's especially when it comes to things that are directly supporting the ministry. If it was a theme park, you might actually hear no. But but in general, everything.
Unless we had a really good reason.
Unless you had a really good reason, that's right.
And I do.
But in general, we try to figure out how do we get to yes, and sometimes the answer is absolutely, let's do this, but not now. And so that's really our mindset going in, is not to be, the bullies saying no to everything, but to figure out how we can support you guys from a finance standpoint.
Yeah, so good accountability. So when you give to the general fund, your general giving, how do you do that? So when you come to the church, and if you put it in the box, and you just put money in a box, or checks in a box, how does that work? Do you want to talk about the intricacy of it? We have envelopes, and in the old days, everybody got envelopes. And the way you used to tithe is you would fill out your envelope and you would mark on there where your money was going. Today, people don't use that as much.
Right.
They still use it, but definitely not as much. Definitely more online giving. But we do have those envelopes available. And right now we actually tried to clarify where the tithe really was meant to go, because I know in the past it was labeled on the envelope, and I still think some of our older envelopes say this, but the first box there is actually budget, and we changed that to general fund because it just kind of explains. First of all, it's not
people don't like the word budget.
It's not as scary as the word budget. Like, why do I want to put my tithe there? That doesn't sound fun. That's what I heard the other day, actually. But general fund is or budget is where the tithe goes, and so our new envelopes as they come out will reflect that. But you can fill out those envelopes, or you can go to broadwaychurch.org/give, and when you go through that giving form where it says give now, you can click that. There will be a form that comes up. You can actually type in your amount and select in the drop down menu the fund that you want your offering to go towards, and the first one there is the general fund.
And so typically we would say the tithe, if we're going to use that terminology, would be giving to the general fund. When you give there first.
Yeah.
Yep.
Would we all agree with that? Give
Yes.
there first. Why? Because you're giving to a plethora of things that makes the church go. You're giving to missions. You're giving to the ministry. You're giving to
utilities,
the youth fund, the utilities fund, the diapers for the babies. I mean, you're giving.
And paying these guys.
Yeah, that's right. You're giving to all that. So if you said, well, where should I give? Try the general fund and go there. Let's go to number 2, though, after general fund. So we've kind of gotten an idea of what that is and where that goes and all the things that supports. Right now, we have a debt reduction fund. So, Brandon, you mentioned online giving. I give online. I break my giving up twice a month into categories. So I'll do the general fund. I'll do the debt reduction fund. And so there's different things to give to. So in addition to the general fund, there's right now a debt reduction fund. We hope within the next year that will no longer even be there.
Love to get rid of that fund.
That'd be awesome.
We'd love to eradicate that. Now, Adam, right now, as of this recording in 2023, we estimate how many more payments on the building, how many
Yeah, so as of the payment made earlier this week, I think we have 16 payments remaining, and that's assuming no additional giving occurs. Obviously, we've seen people give regularly and would expect that to occur. So I think it's very realistic we could be done within 12 months.
Yeah, so 12 months or 1 year, 4 months. And if we did nothing else, the debt would be eradicated. And that's amazing to me, because when you were on the Pastor Search Council, Adam, and when we started the Pastor Search Council, the debt was at $3 million. That was January, February 2020.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and
With the balloon, yeah.
Yeah, with the balloon.
With the balloon note. So I remember when you guys explained this to me, my heart like skipped 5 beats. They said, "Well, we're $2 million."
Thought you weren't coming when we talked through that.
They said we're $3 million in debt, and I thought, "Gosh, okay, that's bad." But then they said, $2 million of that, when we pay it off, we will then have a $1 million balloon note. And how was that going to work? It was like it would start inflating.
Well, yeah. So you had a balloon at the end where we were only paying interest throughout time, and I mean, quite frankly, when that was structured, it made sense because we were trying to keep the church afloat financially.
And let's say a word about that. People may not realize that there was a period of time where things were tight.
Things were absolutely tight for several years.
And the reason they got into this financial balloon situation was so that they could make the payments.
That's right. Had to really reduce the amount going toward debt any way possible, and the only way you could do that was to create a balloon out in the future where you're only paying interest now. Unfortunately, that is completely gone, and we're down to, I think, roughly
587,000.
Plus, we've got some in the designated fund to come off of that.
About a payment and a half right now.
So realistically, about 540,000 right now.
Yeah.
And that's it. And so we're at a point now to where each month, like I said earlier, about $30,000 of our budget goes toward paying the debt. But because we've paid so much of that principal down, about just over 28,000 of that 30,000 is going directly to principal,
which is killing it.
Yeah, we have
killing it.
That's right.
So I hope our listeners understand this. When we started the debt reduction campaign in October 2020, we were in the middle of COVID. We had just come off of $3 million of debt. Because the interest rates were so low, you guys did a great move. You refinanced. And we said, okay, we're going to refinance. And the bank said at the time, yeah, we'll let you do that. And we'll let you boil it down to $2.5 million, and you get rid of your balloon note. So hallelujah, that was step one, right? But then we still had $2.5 million. And so we start this campaign, let's get rid of the $2.5 million. And I remember the first Sunday we put the bricks up on the digital thing, and we had like 3 little bricks filled in. Each brick represented $6,000.
There was 427 bricks, 423 bricks.
It was pretty intimidating at first.
And I said, we are never going to pay this thing off. Well, I mean, that's what I thought in my head.
When I created the graphic, I was looking at like different templates or whatever that other places were using, and they would all use those thermometers, like you have the thermometer and they would color it in, and then it would like overflow at the top or whatever when it was finished. But there was never a line that wasn't less than like $60,000 to get to before you colored it in.
Right. So
then I looked at a Dave Ramsey template on paying off your home mortgage, and it was bricks. It was 360 bricks, and you colored in every time you make a payment or an additional payment or whatever. And so I was like, okay, that's it. So I took a spreadsheet, took a screenshot, overlaid it on the logo, and
genius.
420 something bricks.
So now when you look at that, just 3 years later, and that's amazing to me, we have paid down $2 million.
Yeah.
$2 million in 3 years.
Yeah, 1.99.
Mm-hmm.
And those bricks are now almost to the top.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And wouldn't it be great within the next 12 months, it's gone. Yeah. It's gone. That's just tremendous.
Yeah, I mean, really and truly, even for me, that graphic went from being super intimidating when we first saw it to now it's like, we got this.
We got this.
Yeah. And I think it's motivated people. I had somebody tell me, this is really encouraging me to see this thing knocked down little by little, piece by piece. And I think that's where we're at. We're at this point where we are putting so much towards principle. You know, I'm not worried about it now. I will say sinfully, at first I was worried. I thought we're paying so much interest. Mm-hmm. Now, you've kept the interest thing on the graphic. We've saved this much interest, but really that's not accurate because it's never changed, the $240,000.
Yeah, and it doesn't change quickly now because the interest saved, you know, it's a projection over the future. So the payments early made a huge impact because you're eating away at the principal. And now you're paying such a small amount of each monthly payment toward interest that you're not going to see it.
I see.
So we're like at 270 something. And I think the graphic says 260.
And I was going to say, it may be a little bit behind, but not significantly
much.
behind.
But the point is, was $270,000 worth keeping in our accounts to do ministry with, or should we have given it to the bank?
Yeah,
well, I think we'd all agree that's huge.
$250,000. It's huge.
That's huge. We've saved in 3 years.
Yeah.
So, I'm excited to see that thing whittle down. So when you give to debt reduction, you're giving to extra to that. We're making the monthly payments, but every little bit has helped. Talk a little bit about that, Adam, because we have seen in the past some big gifts, but a lot of what's happening is just people being faithful to give $100 here, $100 there, extra.
Yeah, and it's been a combination, like you said. You've seen some big gifts come in, but a big chunk of it is a few $100s on a weekly basis coming in. And, you know, we usually, you know, on roughly a monthly basis, go ahead and take that extra amount to the bank, and it's made a huge impact. And, you know, the way I think about it is you're really giving toward the future of the church, because once this debt is gone, I know your mind's going crazy about what comes next, but to me it's just exciting knowing that we don't have that to worry about, and there are so many different options that we have ahead of us once this debt's behind us.
Yes, in a much better position to where we're not worried about making a banknote if anything happened nationally, internationally. I mean, you're like, okay,
right.
we're good, you know, by the grace of God. We don't have to pay a bank. We may have other problems, but we don't have to do that.
Well, and it's awesome to see, like, you know, and I know members may not truly understand this because, you know, they give towards the debt reduction and they don't really see the big picture until it's, you know, updated on the graphic or whatever. But that work is so incredible because within a month, like within 4 weeks or when we have 5-week months, we are almost making an extra payment.
Right.
Which is incredible, extra. Each month, which is
I think
crazy.
we were right at $40,000 extra toward the debt last month.
Yeah,
so
which is insane.
And the amazing thing too is Broadway has been shackled with this since roughly, we're going to say 1997. So when I was in college at Ole Miss watching your brother punt, they were starting this project, and here we are. You know, you're 60, Adam, and I'm 80.
Exactly.
And Brandon's 20.
Yeah.
And
praise the Lord.
And we're finally,
going back in time.
Finally seeing this thing, reduce. And I don't know, as a member, if I had been here all those years, you know, and we got some pushback when we talked about the building and all that, and people said, well, it was necessary at the time, and I don't think you guys represented that well on the podcast, the previous podcast. And so I just want to note that. I know that the members did what they thought was best, what the leadership led them to do. There was a lot of things surrounding that. You know, at the time it was, if you build it, they'll come, and things were different. And so, you know, all you can do is go into it with the knowledge that you have. But I would think, man, it's going to be so liberating when something we've had for, how many years is that? Let's just say 1997 roughly, when they started thinking about building this building, to now you've had money on your mind that long over a building. So that's what?
23, 24 years?
Yeah, it's just nice to be done with that. That means, Timothy, you weren't even born. What year were you born? 98. Oh, okay. Timothy wasn't even born when they started all this. Yeah, so now it's down to 500 and something thousand, which is doable. I mean, if you think about that, that's Timothy's house payment, right? That's how much your house is worth. So, I mean, if one guy could take on that much debt, the church certainly can do it. So it's so exciting to see that eliminated and go away. and we hope it's soon. Well, that moves us into the next thing. People have asked, well, what are you going to do when you get out of debt? And some people have said to me, well, we know you're just going to take us back into debt, or you're going to get us out of debt to take us back into debt. And I've tried to say, well, not if we can help it. Now, we can't guarantee that we will never take out a loan again. It's not a sin to take out a loan. I mean, who knows what will happen? We can't predict the future, but we would be in a much better position in the future having our debt paid off from the 90s than we would if we had just maintained it. So looking at the future, we're going, okay, we're growing numerically, we're growing spiritually, we're growing financially. What we want to do next is start thinking, what is next? Well, we know space is a huge issue for us. Ironically, we have all the space in the world. It's just not filled in.
Yeah.
We just kind of have vast amounts of space that are empty in our building, which is a little weird. Some of that is because as they were building it, they ran out of money, and so they never could complete the balcony. So we have an empty balcony. And if you come to the sanctuary and you look over the balcony, you just kind of see empty. You know, there's nothing really there.
Yeah.
So we've said, how could we repurpose that and use it for ministry and take the space that we have? And that's where the Christmas offering comes in. So let's now talk about that. We started a Christmas offering years ago when I came in 2020, which I guess we had it before, but it went to missions or something.
It did. It went to a multiplicity of things.
And it had come and gone as far as how it had been used, but there had always been some sort of special Christmas emphasis.
Yeah. So when I came, we were in the crags of COVID, right? We were in the depths of COVID, and attendance was low at the time. We were probably running in the low hundreds, and so my thought was, I want to be around to give to missions. So what we need to do is get this debt out of the way. Because at that time, you didn't know what was going to happen. Were they going to shut us down another year? So many questions. So we thought, okay, let's make the offering about that. So we did it the first year. It went really well. Paid a lot down. Did it the second year. I think we did it the third year. I can't remember how many. But we did it for a couple of years. Now, immediately when we did that, we got pushback from people who said, well, what about Lottie Moon? Now, if you don't know what that is, in the Southern Baptist world, there was a woman who was dear and precious and loved missions, and the Southern Baptists do an extra above and beyond offering every Christmas called Lottie Moon. And at Easter, they do one, Annie Armstrong. So these two offerings are in addition to what every church is giving annually. So every church normally budgets to give to the IMB and North American missions. And the Christmas offering is like extra. So they'll set goals nationally, like this year our goal is $200 million, and they'll meet it. And they'll get the $200 million from churches all over America, and that's great. My thought was, again, we've got to take care of the $2 million that we have the problem with, and we want to be around to give to that 20 years from now. So, there's no law that says you have to give to that. That's extra. We're giving to missions every week, every month. This is extra. So, let's take our Christmas offering and use it to try to fix some of our financial woes. So, at first people didn't quite understand that. And they were like, no, we've, it's almost ungodly. We got to give to missions. Well, you can still give to missions. You can designate it and you can give to Lottie Moon or whatever you want to give to. But we started doing that. And then last year we said, okay, there's things that have to be done in our building because we had a lot of problems. And we don't know why we have these problems, but it is what it is. So we had leakage problems coming in from the ceiling. We had upgrades that needed to be done. I mean, you never think about this when you build something. You're going to have to maintain it financially. You build a building, you're going to have to keep the lights on, the light poles. You're going to have to change bulbs. Technology.
Yeah.
I mean, this past summer, our lights went out completely in the sanctuary. We couldn't get them back on.
No.
And the technology is so old now that they're like, we don't even know if we can fix it. And how much did they tell you to fix our entire light system in the sanctuary it would be?
Well, I mean, it would be probably close to 100,000, but it really isn't. There is no option to repair or even replace what we have with what they put in initially, because all lighting has moved to a new type of system. So it's not just replacing what we have with the 2.0. There is no 2.0 for what we have.
It's like you've got to redo everything.
Yeah, you have to refix every light fixture in the sanctuary, and technology it's changing exponentially faster each year. I mean, it used to be where in 10 years something would be obsolete, but now it's like 5. I mean, technology is moving that much faster. And
you think about the carpet, which is nasty now, and it's like, when can we change this? And I'm like, well, you throw down 400,000, we can, but until then, we can't. So there's all these things that we know had to be done. So last year we said, okay, let's start a phased project. There's 3 areas we need to work on: the outside, the inside, and then the sanctuary itself. The sanctuary was the big one, because once you start messing with things there, you got to redo the lights, $100,000. You got to redo the sound system,
almost 200,000.
Yeah, we've gotten quotes,
Yeah.
200,000 for the sound system, and then you got to redo the stage, and then you got to carpet, $200,000. I mean, it never ends. So we were like, okay, let's phase this thing out. Phase 1, we've got to fix all the exterior stuff where there's leaking and there's damage being done. Our facilities director said, if you don't fix some of this, you're not going to have a building to remodel. Yeah. So you've got to fix this. So we said, okay. So we took up an offering. God was gracious. We got a good amount, and we fixed the outside. Anything y'all want to say about last year and the offering? We spent about, what, $82,000?
$86,000.
Yeah, 86,000. So around 100 of last year's offering left. So that just shows that the people understood the need and were willing to give to it.
Yeah.
So we did that. We completed that. A lot of outside upgrades. You don't see that as much, though. Like, you do see, okay, the columns got painted, but you don't realize, and the eaves got fixed, and the
our
water.
Our light bill sees it.
Yeah.
All of the exterior
lighting
was LED. But what I'm saying is
people don't see that,
Yeah.
right? They don't see the fact that the light bill has been reduced by what, half?
I don't know what it is.
I mean, almost $7,000 a month
Yeah.
in utility savings.
Yeah, so
that's huge.
And that's because, again, we switched, outside to LED. And
you closed some of the gaps that were letting air in, and other things that you probably didn't notice, but were huge.
Yeah, so it wasn't this big grand, oh, wow, yeah, I see it all. But when you actually gave to something very beneficial.
Although the columns do look really nice painted.
They do. They don't have holes in them anymore.
And the stucco on the north side's not black anymore.
That's right. That's right. And the porticos are not about to fall in on somebody.
Yeah,
Correct.
That's crazy. They got up there and noticed that they really were falling in.
And they said, if you don't fix this, they're going to collapse.
They will collapse, yeah.
That was crazy.
Okay. Well, I guess we have to fix that then. So, that was that. So now this year what we're doing is phase 2, which is inside the building. And if you give to the Christmas offering in phase 2, you're giving to upgrades inside. Now, let's revisit this. Why are we not going to hit the sanctuary first? Everybody wants the sanctuary. They're like, when are we going to get new carpet and new seating? And well, we want that too. But again, why are we doing in phase 2? Sanctuary is phase 3. So why in phase 2 are we going to hit Sunday school space and youth space and children's space?
Well, while the sanctuary is an awesome upgrade, and I'm looking forward to that as well. I mean, because, in a lot of ways it will be more appealing visually, audially, all those types of things. I mean, we'll be able to hopefully be less distractions when, the sound fades out or lights flicker on and off. Things like that will be helpful. But our greatest need right now, so one of the things we did pastorally was we actually went to the staff and kind of gave a needs list as we were thinking through a master plan. So we were coming up with a master plan pastorally for this space and the vision of our church, the direction, future of our church, where are we going? And one of the biggest things on the list was a space for groups, for small groups, for adults, for children, for youth, dedicated spaces, because our teenagers are meeting in hallways right now, or some of our teenage classes.
And we
are
have
meeting
this
hallways.
huge building, and how many square feet is our sanctuary fellowship hall? like 200 million billion square feet.
I think that's right.
But it's just one big meeting spot. It's just one big room.
rectangle. Yeah.
It's like there's no side rooms.
Yeah, there are few classrooms.
Yeah.
And even less storage spaces, unless you get in the attic, and then it's all storage.
The third floor. Yeah, that's different. Yeah.
So, but all of those, so the youth are meeting in hallways. The children are meeting in the school, which, that was the vision of the church before. We talked about that. But from a security standpoint and from our church growing the way that it is, it's not helpful to have groups meeting that far away from the rest of
like 3 miles away.
Yeah. So
this is 1 acre campus.
That's right.
So literally you could be so far away you'd have to have a car to get back up to the front. So
we're going to put in our own monorail.
It sounds good, but it's like from a security standpoint and kids running everywhere, not a good idea.
And then finally adults, more adults are coming to Sunday school classes. We're having D groups with women and men's needing to meet in various spaces. And the connections rooms were awesome. I mean, when we added those, I think that was the Christmas offering a couple of years ago.
That's right. One year we added the carpet in
rooms.
The entryway. We fixed the wallpaper falling off the wall, and we gutted those storage rooms and we made them classrooms.
Yeah.
North and South
One
connection.
was a classroom, but yes.
Yeah.
And
one just had puppets in it.
Right. But they're so nice. And
it did, Timothy. It had puppets in it.
But it really just added one classroom. But our need is great now. And that was what the staff was saying when we were meeting. We need meeting spaces for adults, kids, and youth. And we have all of this empty space in our church. So what better way to move forward than to repurpose that space? And we've even looked at, if I can talk about this, we've looked at, building like an educational wing or building, but everyone we've talked to says this is the absolute worst time to build a new building. I mean, everyone is saying that. People are halting construction projects because it is so expensive to build a new building, and it would just put us in, further debt, and we don't want that. So this is a way that we can hopefully prayerfully do this debt-free and account for the growth that God is giving us now.
So using our empty balcony in the sanctuary, we're going to wall that up. We're going to have, 8 new classrooms that we'll be making out of that. One side will be dedicated to children's ministry, 1st through 5th. We're excited about that. One side will be dedicated to adult Sunday school. We're excited about that. And then the choir room, youth room is going to get gutted, and that's going to be one big youth room with 4 Sunday school classes. So all of our youth will be in one location for security. We're so excited about all these things. Now, we can do all this debt-free.
Yeah.
And that's the best part. This phase 2, we already have $100,000 from last year's Christmas offering. We're asking the church for another $175 this year. If we can get that, let's talk about that. We'll start, after we bring bids and church votes to do it, we'll start construction maybe in January 2024.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, I'll just address that from the finance side, because I know some people out there will be, well, why don't we just pay down the debt and then worry about it? And, that's certainly an idea, but, the need for the space, like Brandon said, we need it now. And so from a finance standpoint, we looked at it and said, okay, we're to the point to where, like I said earlier, less than $2,000 a month is going toward interest. So, not a ton of interest remaining on the debt. And then if you start looking at construction costs and where they're projected to go, we looked at it and said, okay, if we waited, 16 months to start this project, where are we? And we said, okay, realistically, all that interest we would have saved by going ahead and paying this debt off early now went to that construction project and more, because of how fast construction costs are rising at this point. So we think, even from a finance standpoint, you kind of hate to be looking at 2 different projects at once, paying down the debt, trying to raise additional funds for the building project. But at the end of the day, we feel like it's the wisest choice is if we can raise the money and do this debt free, then the church is better on both fronts.
Yeah, because we're going to eliminate the debt very soon.
Right.
But this is instant need. Now, let's say we complete phase 2, these Sunday school classes, youth room, children's wing. We get over that next year, next Christmas, Lord willing, that we're still alive. We're now out of debt. We're now debt-free, theoretically, right? We've paid our debt off. We have phase 2 paid for. Well, now we're in a place where literally the money we were budgeting to go to the bank, which was $30,000 a month roughly, we could budget that towards the remodeling of the sanctuary.
Right.
And in 1 year, in our budget, we could pay for what it's going to take to remodel the sanctuary, everything, and do it debt-free, right? And that doesn't even count Christmas offerings and other things that we could throw in there. So we feel like, okay, what's next is we're in a position debt-free to move forward and increase our space, our footprint, our ministry. Imagine 2 years from now, 2026 Christmas. Well, it'd be 2025 Christmas or whatever. I'm bad at numbers, but it would be one of those Christmases 2 years from now. Imagine this, that our Christmas offering goes towards Lottie Moon or towards our church plant in Lewisburg or wherever Trey is at or one of those. Yeah. And we say, hey, this year we're going to give $25,000 to our church plant, and then we're going to give, another $25,000. Our Christmas offering of $100,000, we're going to give, our goal for Lottie Moon is $50,000, and our goal for our church plant is $50,000. I mean, imagine that day.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Then you're not trying to fix what you have, and you're not trying to get out of debt anymore. You're like giving to ministry.
Well, momentum is on our side at that point. And even now, I would say momentum is on our side, and that we're seeing the effects of that, and that's really exciting. And like you said, I mean, moving forward, it just gives us the opportunity as a church to serve in so many different ways that it's not possible with this huge thing looming over us. And even the idea of, we're meeting a need now with space. If we meet it now, we don't have to worry about that until, when the debt's paid off, that fund goes away. Hopefully a new one comes along, and it's called capital planning, or what did we say, building fund,
future,
or whatever it is.
Expansion, whatever.
But that converts to that.
That's when the theme park idea comes into play. Yeah.
Yes. Well, see, the steeple already is our castle, right? So we already have the Magic Kingdom.
But then, those maintenance things that come up with this building, I mean, that's done. It's we're ready for that, and that'll be a great place to be, Lord willing.
Yeah. So we look forward to the future and the ministry that we could do. I mean, we'll plant churches, we'll send out missionaries. So exciting to think about that day. Yeah. From where we were just 3 years ago in the middle of COVID, saying, "Ooh, we got to get rid of this. We got to do better." So closing arguments. Adam, you're a financial genius. So, and we know how you do it too. Adam told me, he said, "I'm going to tell you my secret. Whenever I do anything, I just add a 0 to the end of any number, and that fixes it."
That's right.
That's a great idea.
Sometimes a comma, sometimes a 0, just whatever it takes.
Just whatever it takes. And it's just a 0. What is a 0?
It's just a
0. Yeah. Can you do that to my check? Can you just add a 0 at the end?
Not sure the finance council would. I'm talking about the accountability. I'm not sure that would pass.
Okay. All right. Well, it was worth a try. That's my economics. Anyway, closing arguments. What would you guys say to the membership as they give and as we go forward? Anything at the end?
I think one final thing for me, in my new role as administrative pastor, and Adam and I have been working on this spending policy for the staff. Administratively, we're kind of tidying up some policies within our office, but one of the clauses in our spending policy is really a notation that says that we recognize as a staff that every dollar that is given out of sacrifice from our membership. And so when we spend that money, whether it's for missions or ministry or whatever it is, we always need to remember the sacrifice of the giving of our membership. And hopefully, as we go along, that will add an extra layer of accountability of the weight of the stewardship, or the weight of the calling of stewardship that we've been given ministerially.
Yeah, really, I'd just close with a thank you. Like I said earlier, the members of Broadway have been faithful to give, and just can't say thank you enough for that, because the role of the finance council is much easier when the money is coming in and we're not having to look at areas to cut and adjust and all that. So really and truly, just thank you to everybody for your faithfulness to give.
Yeah.
Well, it's exciting. So we look forward to this Christmas season and pray, Lord willing, of course, you have all these plans of mice and men, and you pray that it comes to pass. But we pray, Lord willing, that that we see phase 2 and phase 3, and we just see a new day. That's super exciting.
Yeah. Amen.
Well, on that note, we will end this edition of Footnotes. Thank you so much, guys, for being with us today. And Adam, you taking time out of your busy schedule to come and talk to us about finances. And thank you for listening. And that's another episode of our podcast, Footnotes. We drop our podcast each Friday, so be sure to tune in, check us out, and listen. Footnotes is a ministry of Broadway Baptist Church located in South Haven, Mississippi. We're located right outside of the Metro Memphis area. You can learn more about us by visiting us online at broadwaychurch.org. Until next time, it's Footnotes.